The room was dark, lit only by the moonlight slipping through the torn curtain. I was standing there, barefoot, my tiny fingers wrapped tightly around the wooden frame of Grandma's bedroom door. I could hear the soft ticking of her clock on the wall, the wheeze of the old heater, and the heavy breathing of a man who didn't belong there. He was crouched beside her bed. I didn't recognize him, just a tall shadow with a bent back, like a monster from the books Grandma used to read me before bed. But this wasn't a story. This was real. He didn't see me. Not at first. I remember the way his hand slid under her pillow, the way he pulled something shiny out and whispered, "You never should have told anyone." Then he turned. And he saw me. He smiled. And I froze. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But I couldn't move. I was just 7. And I was all alone. He put the knife back in his coat pocket, walked toward me and knelt down. His breath smelled like metal and smoke. He didn't speak. He just stared at me with eyes too empty to be human. And then, Grandma's voice cut through the darkness. "Get away from her." Her voice wasn't scared. It was angry, fierce, like a lion protecting its cub. That's when he grabbed me. Everything after that was a blur of shouting, struggling, and the sound of something heavy crashing to the floor. I still don't know how I got out of that house. But I remember the cold grass under my feet as I ran into the woods behind the cabin. I remember the blood on my hand that wasn't mine. And I remember the silence that followed. I was only 7. And what happened to me that night still haunts me today. I guess it all started 3 weeks earlier. Mom had dropped me off at Grandma's house for the summer. She always did when things got too loud at home. That's what she called it, loud. But I knew what it really meant. It meant another one of her boyfriends had lost his job or gotten angry about something dumb and decided to break things. Or worse. Grandma's house was old but safe. It sat on a small hill surrounded by woods, far from the city, where the air smelled like pine and every night sounded like crickets instead of sirens. It was the kind of place where time moved slow. She had chickens, a big garden, and a porch swing that creaked whenever the wind blew. She made me warm cornbread and let me stay up late watching black and white TV shows. And every night she'd tuck me in and say the same thing. "You're safe here, baby. Nothing bad can touch you while I'm breathing." I believed her. The first few days were nice. Peaceful. We picked strawberries, painted old jars with glitter, and fed the chickens every morning. Grandma would hum little songs I'd never heard before, sometimes stopping to tell me stories about when she was a little girl, how she used to climb the tallest trees and steal honey from bees without getting stung. I liked those stories. They made her see magic. But there were things she didn't talk about. Sometimes I'd find her staring out the window, holding that same faded picture of a man I never met. Her husband. My grandpa. I asked her once what happened to him. She said, "He went away when I needed him most. That's all. No more." I didn't ask again. Then one morning she found a note in the mailbox. It had no name, just a piece of paper with 5 words written in messy black ink. "You think you're safe now?" Grandma read it, folded it once and didn't say a word. But her hands were shaking. She threw it in the fire, made me a peanut butter sandwich, and told me we were going into town. At the grocery store she talked to Mr. Harlan the butcher for a long time. I heard her say something about locking things down and calling Sheriff Dale. I didn't know what that meant, but her voice was sharp like it had thorns. That night she locked all the windows, even the ones upstairs. She put an old bat behind the front door and slept with a flashlight in her hand. I asked if we were in danger. She smiled and said, "No, honey, just being careful." But I could feel it. Something was wrong. One afternoon I went exploring behind the shed, near the woods. Grandma had told me to stay away from that area because the ground was soft, and there were snakes. But I was bored and curious. I found a small clearing with 3 flat stones stuck in the dirt, like broken teeth. One had a name scratched into it with a knife. Sally, age 9. The others had no names. I ran back to the house and told Grandma. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she sat me down and told me Sally was her sister. She died when they were kids. An accident, she said. That's all. No more. But I saw the tears in her eyes. That night, I dreamed of a little girl calling my name from the woods. She sounded scared, like she needed help. When I told Grandma the next morning, she dropped her coffee cup. A few days later I saw him, the man from the bedroom, at the edge of the trees just standing there, watching the house. At first I thought it was just a tall scarecrow, but then he moved, slowly like he wasn't in a hurry. I screamed for Grandma, but by the time she came running he was gone. She didn't doubt me. She just said, "If you see him again, don't wait. Run. Straight to the house. Lock the door. You hear me?" I nodded, but I didn't understand. A few more nights passed. The air grew colder. Grandma stopped humming. She barely slept. She'd sit on the porch at night with the old shotgun Grandpa left behind, watching the woods like they might come alive and swallow us whole. Then came the night. The night I woke up to the sound of the front door creaking open. I thought it was Grandma. Maybe she forgot something outside. But the hallway was quiet. Too quiet. And when I peeked around the corner I saw him. Inside. Kneeling by her bed. Everything after that moved like slow thunder. Him grabbing me. Grandma shouting. The fight. The running. The cold air burning my skin. The woods swallowing me whole. I don't remember how long I was out there. But I remember what I found. Something buried in the dirt behind the shed. A box. Wrapped in old cloth. I only opened it because I was too scared to go back to the house. Inside were pictures, letters, and a tape recorder with a note. "If something happens to me, listen." I was still clutching that box when I heard footsteps behind me. Not running, just walking. Closer, closer. And then, I turned around shaking all over, hugging the box tight against my chest. The footsteps stopped. For a second there was just silence, so heavy it felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. Then a voice. Low. Familiar. "Emily," it said. "It's me. Grandma." She stepped out from behind the trees, flashlight in one hand, the old shotgun in the other. Her gray hair was messy and wild, and there was blood on her nightgown, just a little, but enough to make my heart jump. "I've been looking everywhere for you, baby," she said softly. "Come here. Let's get back inside." I ran to her, almost dropping the box. She held me close, tight, her heart beating fast. She smelled like smoke and sweat, and something else I couldn't name. "Is he gone?" I whispered. Grandma looked over her shoulder. "For now," she said. "But we don't have much time." Back inside the house, the front door was cracked open, swinging gently in the breeze. The living room lamp had been knocked over. One of the windows was broken. There were muddy footprints on the rug, big ones. Too big to be hers. Grandma moved fast, locking every door and window again, like she'd done it 1,000 times. I sat on the couch, hugging the box, still too shaken to speak. She sat across from me and lit a candle when the power went out. The shadows flickered across her face, making her look both like herself and someone else. She saw the box in my lap. "Where'd you find that?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Behind the shed," I said. "Buried." She didn't speak for a long time, just stared at it. Then she reached over and took out the tape recorder. Her hands shook a little as she flipped it open and checked for the cassette. It was there. Already loaded. She looked at me, her eyes suddenly wet. "You're gonna hear things," she said. "Things I never wanted you or anyone to know. But it's time." She pressed play. A crackle of static. Then a voice. Grandma's voice. Younger. Softer. But still hers. "If you're hearing this, it means he came back." She paused the tape. "Not yet," she said. "You're too young for this, but I don't have a choice." She looked straight into my eyes. "The man you saw tonight. I knew him. A long time ago. Before your mama was born. Before I even met your grandpa. He wasn't always like that. But something changed him." I didn't understand. "Why did he come back?" I asked. Grandma sighed. "Because I tried to stop him once. And now he wants to finish what he started." She stood and walked to the cabinet near the fireplace, opened a secret panel in the back I'd never noticed, and pulled out an old, folded newspaper. She handed it to me. The headline read, "Local Girl Missing 1973. There was a black and white picture of a little girl. Curly hair. Big eyes. A name underneath, Sally Harper. Age 9. She was my sister, Grandma said quietly. He took her. We thought she ran away, but I found the truth years later, buried behind the shed. I looked at her, eyes wide. You mean those stones? She nodded. He hurt her, Emily. And 2 others. All girls. All young. He was never caught. The town buried it. Said it was wild animals or bad parenting. But I knew. I saw him once. Just like you did. But why would he come back now? I asked. Grandma sat down. Her shoulders heavy like she was holding up the whole world. Because I found something. Something he left behind. Proof. And I threatened to expose it. I thought he was dead. But you never really kill something like that. Not with secrets. The wind howled outside. The trees scraped against the window. Somewhere far off, a branch snapped. I jumped. Grandma picked up the shotgun again and looked toward the door. We'll leave at first light, she said. We'll go to the sheriff. I'll tell everything. But tonight we stay quiet. We stay alert. And we don't go near the windows. She reached over, paused, then handed me a small key on a necklace. This was Sally's, she said. Keep it with you. I nodded and put it around my neck. The rest of the night passed slowly. Grandma sat in the rocking chair, never closing her eyes. I stayed on the couch, holding the box in my lap. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. Every gust of wind made my heart race. I must have fallen asleep just before dawn. Because the next thing I knew, light was pouring through the window and Grandma was gone. I called her name. No answer. I checked every room. Nothing. I looked outside. No footprints in the fresh morning dew. Her shotgun was still by the chair. The tape recorder was gone. Panic rushed in like a wave. I ran out the front door, across the field, to the shed. The ground was disturbed. Like someone had dug there again. The stones were moved. The hole was bigger. And on top of the dirt, something shiny caught my eye. The necklace. The one she'd given me. Except it was broken. That's when I saw the note pinned to the tree behind the shed. Just 4 words. She should have stayed quiet. And below it, a small lock of gray hair. I screamed. My scream echoed through the woods, bouncing off trees like a warning bell no one would hear. My knees gave out and I fell to the dirt, still holding the broken necklace in my hand. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt tight, my chest heavy. I wanted to believe it wasn't real. That this was another nightmare, like the ones I used to have when I was little. But this was too sharp. Too cold. The note flapped in the wind, nailed cruelly to the old tree behind the shed. She should have stayed quiet. For words, written in the same jagged, angry letters as the one Grandma had burned days before. He was here. He had been here, right under our noses. And now, Grandma was gone. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Something inside me clicked. Like a small flame catching fire. I picked up the note, folded it, and tucked it in the box with the photos and tape recorder Grandma had left me. The tape. The one she paused before finishing. It had to have answers. And if she had taken it when she disappeared, then I had to find her. No one else was going to help. Not the sheriff. Not Mom. No one. It was up to me. I grabbed a flashlight, a granola bar, and one of Grandma's old scarves, still smelling like her. Then I opened the trapdoor behind the fireplace. She'd shown it to me once a long time ago, when we were playing hide and seek. A secret place where she said, "The world can't find you." I crawled inside and closed the door behind me. The crawl space was tight and smelled like old wood and dust. I curled up in the corner and listened. First nothing. Then footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Not Grandma's. Not mine. They were inside the house. I held my breath. The floor above creaked. I could hear the dragging sound of something, maybe a bag, maybe something worse. The sound of cabinets opening and slamming shut. Then silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then the front door opened and shut. I counted to 100. Then crawled out of the trapdoor and looked around. Everything had been touched. Drawers pulled open, couch cushions torn. Even the flower vase shattered on the floor. He was searching for something. Probably the tape. Which meant it was important. I ran to the shed. The ground was still soft, but the hole was deeper now, dug up completely. I jumped in and started digging with my hands, clawing through the earth until my fingers hit something hard. A second box. Smaller. Locked. And I had the key. My hand shook as I turned the tiny keyhole. The box clicked open. Inside were more photographs. Not old ones, new. Freshly printed. Of Grandma. Of me. Of the house. Of us walking through the garden. One showed me picking strawberries with my back to the woods. And just at the edge of the picture, almost hidden in the shadows, was the outline of a man. He had been watching us for days. There was also a folded letter inside, written in Grandma's handwriting. If anything happens to me, go to the old Harper barn. You'll find the rest of the story there. And maybe a way to stop him. The Harper barn was across the creek, near the place I wasn't allowed to go alone. I'd only been there once years ago with Grandma, and even then she seemed nervous. It was old, falling apart and swallowed by trees. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed the letter and photos inside and started walking. The air was thick, the woods too quiet. Every stick that snapped beneath my feet made me jump. I kept thinking he was behind me, watching, waiting. It took an hour to reach the barn. The roof sagged like it was tired of standing, and ivy crawled up the walls like claws. I stepped inside, and dust danced in the sunlight slashing through the broken boards. It was empty, or so I thought. Then I saw it, beneath a pile of hay in the corner. A trapdoor, just like the one at Grandma's. I pulled it open and found a ladder. It led down into darkness. My hands trembled as I climbed, one step at a time. At the bottom was a room. Small, cold, lit by a single hanging bulb. And in the middle a chair. Ropes. And blood. I backed away, heart pounding, but something caught my eye. A wall covered in photos. Newspaper clippings. Names of missing girls. Notes written in red ink. Arrows pointing from one face to another. Grandma's name was there. So was mine. And then I saw it. A photograph more recent than the others. Of Grandma. In this same room. Eyes closed. A bruise on her cheek. I sank to the floor, the world spinning around me. He had her. He had her here. And I was too late. But then I saw the tape recorder. Sitting on the table, next to a pair of old keys and a half-empty bottle of water. I picked it up and pressed play. Her voice. Weak. Tired. But alive. If you found this, I'm still here. He left. He always leaves before the sun goes down. He thinks no one will come. But I know you, Emily. I know you're brave. Follow the sound of the pipe. It leads to the well. I'll be there. If you're not too late. I turned off the tape. My whole body was shaking, but I forced myself up. I had one chance. I grabbed the keys, ran outside, and followed the rusted water pipe that led from the barn and into the trees. It twisted and turned through thick brush and tangled weeds until it ended at a stone well. One I had never seen before. And then I heard it. A voice. Faint. But real. Emily. I leaned over the edge of the well and called, Grandma? Down here, she cried. Please help me. I dropped to my knees and shined the flashlight down. She was there, at the bottom, bruised but alive, chained to the wall like an animal. I found the keys. I shouted, but before I could lower them, a hand gripped my shoulder. Hard. I turned. It was him. He was standing behind me, smiling. Found you, he said. His hand was ice cold and rough, like tree bark. I couldn't scream. My throat locked up. All I could do was stare into those empty eyes. The same eyes I had seen in the bedroom that night. Closer now. Real. Alive. And evil. Let go of me. I shouted, finally finding my voice. He didn't speak. Just gripped my shoulder harder, his fingernails digging into my skin. Then just as suddenly he let go. I stumbled back, nearly falling into the well. My flashlight slipped from my hand and hit the grass with a thud. He stood there, staring down at me like I was something that didn't belong in his world. And maybe I didn't. I told her not to talk, he said quietly, almost to himself. Told her to leave it buried. His voice was deep, hollow, like something that had forgotten how to feel. She's alive, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I'm not leaving without her. He tilted his head like he didn't understand. Or maybe like he did, but didn't care. "You're just like her," he muttered. "Always digging." I saw something flash in his coat metal. A knife. That same silver blade I'd seen the night he broke into the house. My chest tightened. I reached slowly into my pocket and gripped the key. The one Grandma gave me around my neck before she disappeared. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't run. Not with her down there. Not with him this close. Then out of the silence a crack. Like a branch snapping. He turned his head slightly. That's when I threw the flashlight at him. It hit him square in the chest, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to distract him. I ran. Straight into the trees. Branches tore at my arms, thorns scraped my legs, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't even know where I was running, just away from the well, away from the knife, away from those hollow eyes. But he was fast. Faster than I thought an old man could be. I could hear him behind me, crashing through the woods, breathing hard like a wild animal. I swerved left, then ducked under a fallen tree. My foot slipped on a rock, and I tumbled down a short hill, landing hard on my side. Pain shot through my ribs, but I pushed myself up. I couldn't stop now. I saw the river. The one behind the hill near the old garden. Grandma once told me it was too deep to cross. But I didn't care. If I could just get across, maybe I could lose him. I sprinted into the water, the cold hitting me like a slap. My shoes were pulled by the current, and I almost fell again. But I kept going, my teeth chattering, arms flailing. Behind me, I heard him scream. A terrible sound. Not like pain. Not like fear. But rage. I made it to the other side and crawled onto the bank, soaked, freezing, but alive. He didn't follow. Maybe he couldn't. I didn't stop moving until I reached Grandma's house again. The front door was wide open. The rooms were trashed. The phone line had been ripped from the wall. No power. No sound. I locked the door, shut all the curtains, and curled up beneath the table, dripping wet and shaking. It was too much. Too much for a kid. I wanted my mom. I wanted to wake up in my bed at home and realize this was all a terrible dream. But it wasn't. That night I sat in the dark, wrapped in one of Grandma's quilts, listening for any sound outside. Nothing. Just the wind. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Morning came, and with it a plan. If I couldn't save Grandma last night, I'd try again today. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. I remembered Mr. Harlan, the butcher Grandma talked to the day she got the first note. He was old but kind. Lived just outside town. I'd only been to his place once, but I remembered the road. I found one of Grandma's maps and traced the trail with my finger. 5 miles. Maybe less if I cut through the woods. I packed food, the second key, and the photos. I even found an old hunting knife Grandma kept under the stove. I didn't know how to use it, but I wasn't going back into those woods empty-handed. Before I left, I took one last look at the broken necklace. I couldn't fix it, but I kept it anyway. Felt like a piece of her. The woods were quiet as I walked. Too quiet. Even the birds were gone. Halfway through, I found something hanging from a tree. A stuffed bunny. Old. Dirty. With one ear missing. It wasn't mine. But I knew what it meant. He was watching again. I kept walking. Faster now. By the time I reached Mr. Harlan's fence, my legs felt like jelly and my chest was tight from running. His house looked peaceful, with flower pots on the porch and wind chimes tinkling in the breeze. I banged on the door until he answered. When he saw me, his eyes widened. "Emily." "Please," I gasped. "He has her. He took Grandma. I found the tapes. The letters. She said you'd help." His face darkened. He let me in. He gave me warm tea and a blanket, then sat me down. And then he told me the truth. About Grandma. About the man in the woods. About everything. "When we were kids," he said, "your grandma tried to tell the town what was happening. About the girls who went missing. About the man who came out of nowhere, pretending to be someone else. She was the only one who believed it was all connected. The rest of us, we were scared. Or we looked the other way." He looked ashamed. "He always came back, Emily. Every 10 years or so. Just long enough for people to forget. But your grandma didn't forget. She kept records. She buried things, evidence. so no one could destroy it. He pulled a dusty folder from his bookshelf. Inside were clippings, maps, and a list of names, most of them crossed out. Then he handed me something I didn't expect. A small black tape, labeled, Final Confession. She gave me this years ago, he said. Told me not to play it unless something happened to her. We put it in his old tape deck and pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Shaky, worn, but clear. If you're hearing this, it means I failed. It means he's back and I wasn't strong enough to stop him. But there's one thing he doesn't know. One thing I never told anyone but Emily. There's another place. A second hiding spot. The one he'll never think to look. That's where the truth is. Everything he did. Everything he is. And once it's out, he can't hurt anyone ever again. She paused, then whispered. It's buried where the nightmares end and the sun touches first. The place only Emily knows. I sat there stunned. The place only I knew? Then it hit me. The treehouse. The one she built with me when I was 5. Hidden high in the tallest tree at the edge of the woods. We called it the sunrise place because every morning, the light hit it first. That's where it was. That's where I had to go. I looked at Mr. Harlan. I need to get there. Tonight. He shook his head. Not alone. I won't be, I said. And I meant it. We gathered supplies, flashlights, a first aid kit, rope, and more. We were ready. Or so we thought. Because just as we stepped outside to head into the woods, a truck pulled up the road. It wasn't a normal truck. It was old, rusted, covered in mud. And when the door opened, he stepped out. The man from the woods, holding Grandma's shotgun, and a bloodied cloth in his other hand. He stood there, framed by the fading sunlight, the old shotgun slung carelessly over his shoulder like it belonged to him. The bloodied cloth in his hand dangled like a warning. Mr. Harlan froze beside me. I could feel his breath catch. Neither of us moved. The man's eyes locked onto mine. You just don't know when to quit, he said calmly, almost like he was tired of the whole thing. Where is she? I shouted. He didn't answer. He dropped the bloodied cloth onto the dirt. I recognized it instantly. It was Grandma's scarf. The one she always wore when she gardened. He smiled. I buried her pain years ago, he muttered. But it keeps coming back. Mr. Harlan stepped forward, steady, his hands up. You need to leave, Walter. Right now. So that was his name. Walter. Felt strange hearing it. He had always been the man. Him. The shadow. Giving him a name didn't make him smaller, but it made him real. Walter didn't flinch. He simply raised the shotgun and pointed it directly at Mr. Harlan. No more second chances, Walter said. I don't remember thinking. I just remember moving. I reached into my backpack, pulled out the hunting knife Grandma had left me, and threw it. Not at him but at the ground in front of him. Just enough to make him twitch. It worked. He jerked the shotgun upward, and Mr. Harlan charged. The two of them collided like bulls, crashing into the porch railing. The shotgun went off with a deafening boom, blasting a hole into the side of the house. Birds scattered from the trees. The world exploded into chaos. I grabbed the backpack and ran for the woods. I didn't wait to see who got up first. I didn't look back. I ran. Branches slapped my face. Roots tried to trip me, but I kept running. Toward the treehouse. Toward the truth. Toward the place only I knew. I reached the tree just as the sun dipped below the treetops. The sky turned orange, then red, like fire smearing across the clouds. The treehouse stood tall and crooked above me, hidden among the leaves like a secret. I climbed fast, skipping rungs, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. At the top, I crawled into the dusty little room, just big enough for me and Grandma when I was small. And there, in the far corner under a loose floorboard, a wooden box. I pulled it free and opened it. Inside were tapes, photographs, letters, police reports, audio recordings, even a torn piece of Walter's old driver's license, proving he had changed his name, faked his death, moved from town to town, always leaving before the trail got too hot. Grandma had collected it all. She hadn't just remembered. She had prepared. I grabbed the tapes and shoved them in my bag. I was about to climb down when I heard something that stopped my heart. Leaves crunching. Below me. I froze. Then I heard the voice. I knew you'd come here. Walter. He was circling the tree now, slow like a snake sizing up its prey. I watched her bring you here once. You smiled like you didn't have a care in the world. But you're just like her. Always digging. Always poking where you don't belong. I held my breath. If you give me what's in that box, he called up, I'll let you live. Liar. I knew better. He'd never let me live. Not after everything Grandma had done to stop him. I'm not coming down. I shouted. He didn't answer. Instead I heard a clink. The sound of something metal. He was climbing. The rope ladder swayed as he grabbed it, one rung at a time. I looked around the treehouse for something. Anything to use. A rock. A broken piece of wood. Even my flashlight. Then I remembered the flare. Mr. Harlan had slipped it into my bag. Just in case. I pulled it out, struck it hard, and whoosh, red light burst from the tip, crackling with fire. Walter's face appeared at the edge of the floor. I screamed and shoved the flare at him. He recoiled, yelling as the light burned near his face. He slipped, one hand catching the rung, the other reaching wildly. And then, snap! The rope tore. He fell. Hard. I peered over the edge. He was sprawled on the ground below, moaning but moving. He wasn't dead. But he was hurt. I could run. I could leave. But Grandma was still out there. I climbed down slowly, keeping the flare in one hand, the bag slung tight on my back. Walter groaned, rolled over, and stared up at me with pure hatred. You think you've won? He hissed. You're just a scared little girl. The world won't believe you. They never believed her. Why would they believe you? I looked him straight in the eyes. Because this time, I said, I have proof. Then I kicked the bag of evidence against his side and ran. Back through the woods. Back toward the barn. Back to the well. I wasn't sure what I'd find, or if she was even still there. But I had to try. When I reached the well, the sun was almost gone. The woods glowed orange and pink, and the trees stretched long shadows across the ground. I dropped the rope down. Grandma! I called. No answer. I dropped farther in, holding tight to the sides of the stones. The air was cold, damp, like a tomb. And then, a sound. A cough. Weak, but real. Emily? Her voice. My heart leapt. I'm here. I cried. She was slumped in the corner, pale but alive. Her wrists were still chained, but the key I had fit the lock perfectly. It clicked open and she collapsed into my arms. I knew you'd find me, she whispered. We're going to the sheriff, I said. With everything. No, she said softly. Not yet. I stared at her. What do you mean? She looked me in the eyes. He's not done. I heard it then. Footsteps. Again. And a voice. Low. Ragged. And furious. You should have stayed in the tree, girl. He was at the top of the well. Staring down. Clutching a long, sharp object in his hand. And then, he jumped. Straight down into the well. He jumped. Right into the well. The sound of his body hitting the stone below wasn't a thud. It was a crack, sharp and final like breaking bones or snapping wood. I screamed. Grandma tried to pull me back, but she was still too weak. I stared down into the dark. There was silence. No movement. Then a low moan echoed up the well walls. He was still alive. I looked at Grandma. Her face was pale, her breath ragged. She was bleeding again from her leg. I hadn't even realized how deep the gash was when I freed her. Her head rolled back against the stone. We need help, I whispered. But no one could hear us. Not this deep in the woods. Not with night swallowing everything above. I'll climb out, I said. Grandma touched my wrist, barely able to squeeze. Be careful. He's not done. I nodded. I climbed. One shaky hand after the other. I reached the top, pulled myself up onto the grass, and looked around. The woods were dark now. Crickets chirped. Something howled far away. The air smelled like moss and sweat and fear. But Walter wasn't there. At least, I thought he wasn't. I grabbed the flare that had rolled across the ground and lit it again. The red light flickered over the trees, casting long shadows. I listened for footsteps. Nothing. He was still at the bottom. I had time. I grabbed the coil of rope and dropped it into the well again. Grandma, hold on, okay? I'll get someone. I ran. Not back to the cabin, and definitely not to the treehouse. I ran toward the one place that had a working phone, Mr. Harlan's old barn. The same barn where I first learned the truth. When I got there, the door was still ajar. Inside, it was dark except for a lantern hanging on a hook. I grabbed the radio off the wall. Mr. Harlan always said he used it when the phone lines went out, and clicked it on. This is Emily. Please someone answer. We need help. There's a man. He tried to kill my grandmother. He's hurt but he's dangerous. Please, we're near Old Birch Lane. Near the burned orchard. Hello. Static. Please. More static. Then click. A voice crackled through. Emily? Is that you? It was Sheriff Dale. Relief flooded me. Yes. Sheriff. Please, we need help. He's here, Walter, the man Grandma warned you about. He came back. He locked her in the well. There was a long pause. Stay put, the sheriff said slowly. I'll be there soon. But he's still out there, I said. He might try to run. Another pause. Emily. I said stay put. Then the radio went dead. I stared at it. Something didn't feel right. Why didn't he ask for more details? Why didn't he say he was calling backup? I turned slowly toward the barn doors. And froze. A figure was standing in the doorway. Not Walter. Sheriff Dale. Only he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, with gray hair slicked back and a jacket far too clean for someone walking in the woods. The sheriff spoke first. You should have never opened that box, Emily. My mouth went dry. He knew. They both knew. I backed up slowly, bumping into hay bales and rusted tools. I sent the recordings, I said quickly. I sent them to people. The media. You can't cover it up. The stranger stepped forward. Records can disappear, he said calmly. People forget things. But if you disappear too, it all dies with you. I felt something behind me, an old pitchfork. I grabbed it, holding it tight. You're not getting away with this, I whispered. The sheriff sighed. You don't understand. Your grandmother was warned. We let her live out her days quietly. That was the deal. But you just had to keep digging. A car pulled up outside the barn. For a second I thought maybe it was help. But then I saw the driver. Walter. Bloodied. Limping. But smiling. My heart dropped. He was alive. He had escaped the well. I turned back to the sheriff. You were helping him all along, I said. The sheriff shrugged. Some ghosts are useful. Walter limped into the barn, still holding that rusted blade. Where's the old woman? He asked. I'm not telling you, I said. He stepped forward. You don't have to. And then, the lights in the barn exploded. Glass shattered. Darkness. And I ran. Through the back. Into the trees. Breath ripping out of me. My legs burning. Back to the well. To Grandma. But when I got there, the rope was gone. And so was she. The well was empty. Completely. Not even a drop of blood. Grandma! I shouted. Only echoes answered. The forest around me suddenly felt too quiet. Like it was holding its breath. And then I heard it. Crunch. Footstep. Behind me. I turned slowly. And saw her. Grandma. But something was wrong. She was standing there, alone in the middle of the path. No injuries. No limp. No fear on her face. Just calm. And in her hand, she held the same knife I had thrown at Walter back on the porch. She stared at me silent. Then she whispered. He lied to all of us, Emily. But I lied too. Before I could speak, she raised the knife. And stepped forward. My feet froze to the ground. The trees around me blurred as Grandma stepped closer, holding the knife steady, her face cold, unreadable. The woman I had protected, cried for, almost died for, was now standing in front of me like a stranger. Grandma. I whispered. She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Her eyes looked through me, not at me, like she was watching something far away, something I couldn't see. I backed away slowly. It's me. Emily. You're safe now. You don't have to. She dropped the knife. It hit the forest floor with a dull thunk. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed into my arms. I am sorry, she choked. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought he was still inside me. I held her tightly. What are you talking about? She clutched at my sleeve like a child. He's not just a man, Emily. He's a sickness. He gets inside people, through fear, through silence. He did it to the sheriff. He did it to your mother. He tried to do it to me again. I pulled her away gently. Grandma, you're not making sense. We have to get out of here. Now. She nodded, trembling, and we started walking together through the woods, every branch and shadow watching us. The well sat silent behind us, the rope still gone. My heart pounded in my ears. Every noise made me spin around. Every silence felt louder than sound. We made it back to the edge of the orchard just as the sun cracked the sky. Red light lit the twisted trees like they were bleeding. The cabin was still smoking in the distance, half burned, half standing. The sheriff's car was gone. So was Walter. For a second, I thought we were alone. But as we stepped onto the porch of the neighbor's farmhouse to use the phone, something moved inside. A figure stood just beyond the broken window. It wasn't Walter. It wasn't the sheriff. It was Mom. She opened the door slowly. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red. She looked at Grandma, then at me, and started crying. I should have told you, she said. I should have told both of you. Told us what? I asked, stepping forward. She held out a stack of photographs, trembling in her hands. Black and white images. Girls in dresses. Old shoes. A forest in the background. A man standing just out of frame. That was him, she whispered. That was the man Grandma warned me about when I was a kid. He didn't just hurt others. He hurt our family. My stomach turned. Mom looked up at Grandma. You never told her, did you? About him. About what happened to you. I didn't want to break her, Grandma said. She deserves to know. I stepped back. I'm right here, I said. You're both talking about me like I'm not standing in front of you. Mom wiped her eyes and took my hand. He's not just some creepy man in the woods. He's your grandfather. The words crashed over me like thunder. What? Grandma looked away. It was long before I met your real grandpa. I was only 15. I didn't know what was happening. He was older, much older. He told me I was special. Then he took everything from me. My voice. My future. My sister. My legs felt weak. I thought he was dead, she continued. I hoped he was. But people like him, they rot in the shadows. They wait. Mom handed me another photo. One I had never seen. A baby girl in a crib. Me. And standing in the corner, face hidden in shadow, was the man. Walter. He had been in our lives longer than I ever knew. He never left, Mom whispered. He just watched. Suddenly something outside crashed. Glass shattered. We all turned toward the back of the house. A trail of smoke snaked under the door. Grandma grabbed my arm. He's here. We rushed through the living room. The smoke thickened. I pulled Grandma and Mom through the kitchen, out the side door down the hill toward the old barn. The door was still open. But this time someone was inside. Mr. Harlan. Bruised. Bleeding. Barely conscious. They drugged me, he muttered. The sheriff and that man. They said they'd kill my wife if I talked. I knelt next to him. We have to get you out of here. But his eyes widened suddenly. No, he croaked. It's a trap. Too late. The barn door slammed shut behind us. We were locked in. From the darkness above, a figure dropped onto the loft railing. Walter. Alive. Strong. Smiling. You brought the whole family, he said, his voice cold. How sweet. Grandma stepped forward. You're not going to hurt her, she said. I already have, he said. You just didn't notice. And then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. The cassette tape. The one I thought I'd lost. He held it up. You know what's funny about secrets? He asked. They rot you from the inside. They grow. And eventually they become louder than screams. He crushed the tape in his hand. Grandma gasped. I still remember what you did to me, he said. But now your granddaughter will too. He snapped his fingers. and the fire started. Flames burst from the floor behind him, catching on the dry hay and wooden beams. Smoke rose instantly, choking the air. We turned to run, only to find the back doors had been locked tight. Flames behind us, Walter in front of us. Nowhere to go. And Grandma collapsed again. This time she didn't move. Grandma! I dropped to my knees beside her. Flames crackling behind us, smoke thickening around the beams. Her chest was moving barely. I shook her shoulders. Please wake up. Please don't leave me now. She opened her eyes just a sliver. You have to get out, Emily.
No.
Not without you. Mom was already trying the barn door, kicking it with everything she had, but it wouldn't budge. Walter stood like a shadow above us, watching the chaos below as if it were a play. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't rushing. This was part of his plan. Mr. Harlan coughed hard, slumping near a stack of crates. The back wall hidden latch. Behind the feed barrel. I didn't wait. I ran to the corner, flames licking the edge of the walls now. My lungs burned, but I pushed the heavy feed barrel aside. There, just like he said, was a small metal hook. I yanked it. The wood creaked. A small square door popped open. Over here! I shouted. Mom grabbed Grandma's other side and together we dragged her through the narrow crawl space. Mr. Harlan followed slowly behind, barely able to walk. As we crawled through the darkness, the fire raged louder behind us. Just as we made it to the other side, the roof of the barn collapsed in a shower of sparks. We made it out. Alive. But Walter was gone. When the fire crew arrived, the barn was still burning. Sheriff Dale's cruiser was found crashed in a ditch 5 miles away. Empty. Blood on the seat. No sign of Walter either. It was like he'd vanished. They searched for weeks. Drones. Dogs. Helicopters. Nothing. He was just gone. But the damage was already done. Grandma recovered slowly. Her body was never the same. Her leg was weak. Her memory faded more each week. But one thing remained clear in her mind. What happened? One day, months later, she sat beside me and took my hand. He didn't start with me, she said. And I'm afraid he didn't end with me either. I asked her what she meant. She looked toward the woods. There are more like him. People who feed on silence. On shame. That's why I told you the truth, Emily. So you'd never be afraid to speak up. And that was the lesson. Secrets don't protect us. They trap us. Walter didn't just hurt our family with his hands. He hurt us with silence, with the lies we told ourselves to pretend everything was okay. But not anymore. I told the police everything. I published Grandma's story online. And for the first time, women from our town, strangers, started to speak up too. They knew him. They remembered. And they weren't afraid anymore. Grandma passed away the following winter. She died holding my hand. Peacefully. She left behind a journal. The first page read, "What happened to me at the age of 7 still haunts me today. But not because I'm afraid. Because I survived." That sentence never left me. And now neither will her story. So if you're watching this, and you've ever felt afraid to speak up, let this be your sign. You're not alone. We survived. And you can too. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to hear more real stories like this. Ones that hurt, heal, and help. And if you've got a story, I'm listening.